Try pausing. Uh, I think we're gonna have to forego the music because your account has for me this does not. It's a stream. It kind of forces. I think I'm curious if you might log out of the list. Play back to your phone. See if you can that's what we'll see. So let me get this back to we can see the camera. So, you want okay. I'm gonna put this back on. There's no sense to know that if you're hungry, there's some charcuterie available downstairs right now by the bar. Because so the things that come to us is If you Why aren't you up there with the kids? No, she's an adult. She can go to the kids club. There's no mommies in the kids club. He didn't work. But there's actually yeah, yeah. There's so scared. Yeah, that's a good. That's you are not real. Oh, this is never been. I think it's basic. It's 84. Yeah, this one feels so good. It's basic. Yeah, that's good. It only got one kid. The rest of the is, yeah, yeah, definitely. I've always tried to see him as a real one. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's always like, my grandma is optimist. Loved her. So this was a particular faith. Yeah, it was so very I got a really different experience for your understand, and that's how I call it. You know, it's you never know it's complicated. Yeah. And then I got a bit of an opposite of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, my brother, I mean, it was still out there. This is a different area, so she was for me. Shut down. I know that I used to think rather help, but it's just great to them. When they got divorced, they never compared that. It's really see the police get but I knew it was work and it was yeah. Yeah, it's yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard. There's the time. Go out there. Get out there. I get it. Jeff was like this particularly, and I didn't rank that.
Like, oh, yeah, but it's healthy. Yeah, it is. I've got several. Yeah. Great. Nice. No, I really love I did. I did put the question. Yeah, we have used it. But, yeah, yeah, we should. But you know, Monica Ross was here. He's really good friends. We didn't know. I remember he's all I was thinking. And I wish I did. Yeah, it's like, you take a break. There we go.
Maybe should just take this down.
But you're going to see something else.
Well, no one's thinking anything like that. We don't need this anymore. Wrap it up. Once we're done, it's just easy to
Guys. My sister asked me to oversee today's festivities for Josh. It's truly an honor to be here with all of you guys to celebrate the decision. So, thank you all for being here. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping. We have bathrooms downstairs. We have bathrooms upstairs. We have the speakeasy with the bar downstairs as well. That's where you may have gotten some charcuterie earlier. There are going to be two buffets later on. For those that are comfortable climbing stairs, there's a buffet upstairs, and there will be a buffet right down here as well. On this level, which will be good. I just want to say a couple of words about why we're here, and then I'm going to speak on behalf of the campus community. I will warn you now that I'm a bit of a crybaby, so I'm going to have to pause a little bit because I've meant a lot to us. So I'm going to start. Why are we here? We're here to celebrate Douglas Carl, Tuesday, Wendy. Sometimes we all love dearly, and a man loves life, live life with joy, and the man never miss an opportunity to spend time with family and friends to tell stories about adventures near and far. So we are all heartbroken that he is not physically here with us. He will be with all of us, and we are here to honor him joyfully, lovingly. Let's have fun, let's tell stories, let's laugh, let's cry, but most importantly, let's celebrate Doug's life. A life well loved and a life well lived. I'm going to just share, I asked my family, I have 5 sisters and 1 brother. I asked my family, not Sarah, because Sarah's going to speak later, but I asked my family to send me thoughts about their relationship with Doug. And rather than read everybody's individually, I kind of moved it all together. So this is from us, from our hearts, and I'm going to try. So bear with me, please. This is from God's family. Doug was a true gift, not just to our sister, but to all of us. He embraced us fully, finding joy in people, fishing, traveling, nature, and of course, sushi. His kindness, his generosity shone through in everything he did. Whether teaching our kids how to fish and fillet a trout at June Lake, or urging a trip to the ER after seeing pictures of Patty, my sister, her black widow bite. She got a black widow bite, sent him a picture, and he said, go to the ER. Doug was always present at family gatherings, engaging in conversation, truly listening, and delivering his signature understated punchlines. He had a way of making everyone feel valued, accepting people for who they were, and sharing his wisdom with patience and warmth. He loved deeply, and in return, he was deeply loved. Especially, one statement. Who found him in the best possible, found him the best possible partner. Doug's generosity knew no bounds, whether it was sharing stories over sushi, gifting us fresh salmon or bluefin tuna from his latest fishing trip, or simply being there with a listening ear and a kind heart. He won the hearts of all of our kids. They all loved Doug in the way he always engaged with them. He had a unique way of making each person feel like they were the only one in the room, always genuinely interested in their thoughts and experiences. His ability to connect with people, regardless of their backgrounds or beliefs, was a rare and beautiful quality. He was a teacher in every sense, just in the classroom, but in life, passing that knowledge with patience and enthusiasm, especially when it came to fishing, as when he loved to share. The man could fish, and he loved to hone his fly fishing skills and share them with others. Apparently, it's all about the loop in the line. I'm sure some of you fly fishermen know that. And in fact, my sister Sarah was quick to point out he could cast a hell of a loop with his rod. I guess that's selfish. Our hearts ache at his loss, but we find comfort in the memories, the love he gave so freely, and the lasting impact he made on our family. And though he left us too soon, his spirit will always be with us. His presence in our lives was a blessing, and while we miss him dearly, the lessons he taught, the laughter he shared, and the love he gave will remain with us always. Rest easy, Doug. We love you, and you remain alive in all of our hearts. Now I would like to ask Bill Reeves to come up from in the classroom and is Bill close by? Bill, you're only in 50 minutes. I've only been done for about maybe up to 30 years. So, fishing buddies, sometimes. I joined District about that time. He was one of the go guys to do everything. So I kind of looked up to him. And we got together on the classroom in the early days. And we had a song at the president show for the Southwest Council. We had a little fish in it. We're trying to get teachers to sign up. Was it? Anyway, so I really admired his tenacity and trying to really get teachers for taught in the classroom. And met a lot of good teachers and good people that taught in the classroom. My first experience was one day I walked up to the drama classroom at Forest Falls. Jim, I think he's in here, he was there that day. And he handed me a chart with fish. And he said, "Can you talk about it?" And I said, "For about 2 hours." And so I had that chart. Well, I had the third generation of that chart that wore on. And anyway, Doug was getting what he acquired a backache. We really helped him with the heavy work. And collecting bugs that you're using a hole and stirring up insects. We let him hold the net. We did the work for him. It was he thought that never happened. Thinking about thoughts, I'm 5 weeks older than Doug, and I've had a lot of thoughts for the last couple of months. And the thoughts were how many days I was not fly fishing. It's a weird thought. But anyway, back to that. When we sit and waiting for the kids to show up on the bus or the cars or however we got it, that's when we really miss everything. We talk about our lives and lives of future and everything. And that's where I really got to know Dad. He was a doctor of Vietnam and kinds of stuff about him. Anyway, Doug was always there. He just dedicated his life for trout in the classroom. And then I was there almost his son most of the time, all the time. A few years ago, Doug and I went to a stream in New Mexico, San Juan River, that I'd never fished before. And Doug and I went. And I got sick and didn't make it the next year. And then both of our wives didn't want us to go again, but we wanted to go. And my doctor didn't want to go either. But we went. I didn't drive because I only had one eye. Like Theo, we went with somebody else, and we had a great time. I think that was Doug's last trip. I'll never forget it. In the classroom, he would always forget something. He had so many little things. And there was always something. And he says, "It's in the garage somewhere." And I'm thinking Victor, Ricky, and Molly, if you guys are old enough to remember that. But so one day we had a meeting at his TIC meeting at his house. It's like, "Let's see the garage." It wasn't bad at all. I couldn't understand why you couldn't find things in there because they were just little here and there. Anyway, about 2 hours up there. That was Bill. So I just want to mention one thing though. I want to mention Ronnie. Ronnie introduced Sarah and we were for president. Because you're a user. John Osborne. John, come on up and there we go. There we go. There we go. You got 3 minutes. Well, I first read this is the earth meeting, so we're both working. This was the better. First read probably 80 or 81. We were working in the ER section of the hospital. Doug was a great friend. He liked to ski, like visit and do. And was an incredibly good friend to me. In the good times and bad times. Some of the memorable times that there's a photograph back there that gets the Tetons who were cross country skiing from Jenny Lane, to Jenny Lane, if you're familiar with the Tetons in the Teton National Park. And he was actually with me in the early 90s when I picked up a lot in Jackson and Douglas with me when I put it on her on the lot, which I know live in Jackson. Another very fun experience was the cigarette that came up when there was a total eclipse of the sun in the house was right square down in the middle of the eclipse. That was a fun. Other times fishing, into Bristol Bay and the Gushiak River, went fishing to Kingston. And so these are all good times that I remember. But most of all, I remember him for being huge emotional support. A couple of bad times. He was a good man. Maybe he was in peace. Now I'd like to call up, let's see, Larry Park, friend and colleague. Larry, are you in the room?
But you play one on TV, right? I play one here.
So Larry said that he couldn't stand up here and talk because he was so too emotional. So I'm Representative Larry Park. Yes. My name is Bowman. I'm one of his colleagues at the hospital that we work with. His friends outside of that. Every day, we're going to miss him a lot. I remember when I first started I read it to me also in 1994. I was one of the young levels, right? So that's 4 older people who were there. And that's one of them. And I remember releasing from the night shift that we were working on the day shift, right? So 7 o'clock I walked in. And I was in the location already, and that's still sitting there, right? So I'm like, can we go home? So he said, I need to finish up the chart. So I went to the application and come back. And this is and I don't know you. So I said to him, I said, Dad, I'm old. It's not, he's not in trouble, is it? That's why he did when he closed his eyes, sleep. With his finger, doing this, the whole time. What is that? You didn't finish go. 20% come back. See that. Right. But you know, one thing that I learned from that and watching him and stuff is, and let me go back. I'm becoming a medical director and trying to get the assessment. He is meticulous. He loves his patient, right? He takes time to sit there and talk to patient. So then that would push me back. I'm waiting to be seen, right? Listen patient, right? He's like, okay. And this is the poor patient that he's working with, but he's so meticulous. He go in and talk to his patient. He makes sure that the patient gets all the answer they get. I never, ever get a complaint from the patient about his treatment to the patient. That's what I learned from that. Now, you know, I'm a little bit faster than he does. Yeah, but that's what I learned because I think each individual patient is simple. Right? So that's the thing. But for me, that's really the other thing that I really, and then I think all the nurses know about this. So when it was medical director, we go to his house in like June, July, and have kind of summer meeting at his house, and we have food and some kind of discuss about what going to be. And he said, Christmas trees still hot. You remember that, right? It's like, what? He said, it's still alive. That's been one of my 5 months. But I mean, the real one, not the fake one. It's like, so anyway, he loved to keep his Christmas, and I love that. He loved that. But I think once Sarah got there, I think they took down February and March, not to June or July, or the next year that we come back from Christmas party in this house. So you know, he has his work, right? And I love his work. And then it's so funny. But for me, I mean, I'm so sorry that he leave us so soon. Right? And so I'm sorry that they never said that. Just like that, I hope you know, rest in peace out there, but you are me. In the arms of the angel, fly away from here. In the arms of the angel, you find some comfort there. That's what Jesus.
Okay, we're calling up Eric Peterson, cousin. Eric.
Voice.
Yeah. So I'm going to start off with some of the connectivity. So I was a first cousin, or the first cousin once removed. So what does that mean? So Doug's mother, Ian, was my grandfather, Eric, another Eric's sister. And I never met Ian. I never met my grandfather, Eric. They both died very young. Ian was, you know, I think was in her early 40s when she passed away. And my grandfather, Eric, was 53. So you're probably thinking right now I'm kind of screwed. But here's the punchline. So the first time I met Doug was at my great grandfather's birthday, Charles Peterson. And he went on to live until he was 105. So I'm saying that because I'm supposed to be talking about singing, but I think this is important, and it's kind of related to some of the things that you've already heard. Relationships were very important to Doug. And the Petersons and the Squeeze, when they got together, they had a lot of fun. And that, I think, was very important. Relationships, family. Doug went the extra 10 yards. Okay. So the first time that I really got to know, my sister here, Karen Roman, came to California. It was a college event. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he showed her the time of her life. And she would come back and say, "You gotta meet this guy. I mean, he's incredible. He loves to fish. He loves to hunt. And I love to fly fish. I love to buckland hunt, love pheasants, rough grouse. And you guys gotta meet." So the first time that we met, I'm going to say the official time, but we had time to talk, was at my cousin Mike's brother's wedding for Peters. And we just hit it off. I mean, he started talking about hunting when he was young and pheasant hunting, and I would talk about that, shotgun sports, wing shooting. I love it. And I really love to hunt rough grass. I love bird dogs. So at the end of the wedding, I said, "You need to come to the annual singing." Finally got there. Rough grass. Well, let's sing. Yeah, the music. So singing is a small word in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And it's something like if you shut your eyes and you're going 55, you're going to go, you'll miss everything. I mean, it's infamous for its famous grocery store, bank, post office, gas station, and restaurant all in the same building. I kid you not. But my uncle Eric, who's once we know him in the family house too. So he always enjoyed hunting in the Upper Peninsula with his father, Eric, who passed away in May. And so did my father, Carl Peterson. And my father used to talk about deer hunting with my uncle Eric. He did it one time, probably the same as George, Duke, because he died so young. But he used to like to hunt deer. And it's kind of funny that I mean, we don't go to the UP to hunt deer because there's not that many. I mean, it's tough winters. But when I would go out there, I would see all these rough grouse. They're just floating all around. I'm in blind now. Why am I hunting deer when there's all these rough grouse? I just looked at them. So Doug came up, and it was just an instant bond. I mean, he just floated up. And within, I don't know, a couple hours, probably had a couple of grouse. I know that he got woodcock, and we just had a terrific time. And it was a family that went out there every year. We probably hunted 35 years, but Doug came up probably the last 10, 12 years. But what Doug introduced to the group that's up there, and once again, there's no electricity, there's no water. We put in our own well, and every year kind of perfected it. We had a shower, and that was like incredible. And but he introduced us to 5-star dining in the middle of nowhere. And we would have the infamous plain linguine, bean pasta, tuna house. If you know Doug, he always would introduce you to tuna house. And actually, my son kind of perfected that recipe after a while. He's a chef. So I'm not a chef. In fact, Doug used to make fun of me on that and such. But anyhow, and the orders. Okay. So we would do that, and he also introduced the group to Chris. Is Chris here? Where's Chris? There he is. Okay, he was part of the family, and Janice's wife, and also David Speaker. It's the first time I kind of met David. David and Chris would come every year and enjoy the festivities. We just had, fabulous time between. And Chris would bring the smoked fish and pies and things of that nature. It was just incredible. In the middle of nowhere. Everything that the property had was backed up to a beautiful lake, and it was full of babies and yellow perch. And it flowed out to a river, Fox River, which was Hemingway's favorite river for fishing for whales. It was loaded. So the more we learned from, I got to know Doug. I mean, we got into other, we used to call them waves, fun activities. There was a gentleman by Doug Wagner couldn't make it. He was very close to Doug. We introduced him to turkey in Ohio, so he would come out every year, turkey hunting. And if you haven't seen the video of it, it's incredible. Doug shoots this big goblin, and Doug Wagner's calling him, and it's like, I don't know, 5 minutes of fun. You can see it. Doug Wagner he's the best call I have ever seen. We also introduced him to steelhead fishing in Cleveland. You can believe it. I mean, no kidding. Right downtown Cleveland, and there's huge steelhead. So I love the fly fish. Obviously, Doug did too. Doug Wagner did as well. We used to have, oh my gosh, just fabulous times. So, and then Doug invited me to the annual duck hunt and goose hunting events. And I could talk probably 2 hours on that alone. And I witnessed so many things. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, we looked at electronic collars in Saskatchewan. You can use electronic collars on an electrical engineer by trade. They said, I can make that. So I built this 1200-watt amplifier, connected it to my uncle, the calls. And one year it was just Doug and I. And so, but it's a little more. You're putting it up the decoys, setting up the collars, and we can start hearing birds. You're getting up a tree, driving there. It's incredible work, but we got the decoys out, got the electronic collar going, setting on low volume, and the birds are starting to come in. So there's to get the trailer, get the truck, park it, let's get it out of here. So I grabbed my lab, put her in the truck, parked it, and never walked back. And Doug was like, they're coming down all over the place. And when you're hunting, you can't start hunting until a certain time. And we always obey the law. And so I get my lamb line, and they're starting to land on my dog. And so she's freaking out. She doesn't know if she should chase them or what. So I covered her up with burlap bag, and then Doug was like, not yet, not yet, not yet. And then he said, it's go time. And we said, I hope this doesn't offend anybody. 42 birds in 45 minutes. And the story goes on. So then, gotta move on. Okay, I know, I'll end it quick, but so anyhow, we got back, we were playing the birds, and other members came by and said, so how'd you do? And I said, you did pretty good. And he started talking about the electronic collar. And one of the hunters said, can I see it? It's a trick. So I looked it up, showed it to him. And one of them came back and said, well, tape. He was the last day of our month. I said, $500. They came in for that $100. The next year we went back, and the same thing happened. Another one. So, Doug was dear to me. So, he was the only brother I ever had. Welcome lunch. Sarah, I gotta say that you're a huge. You love us so much. I know you know that. But we love you, and then we want you to continue to come to Michigan as well. And Jennifer and Erica, great name, Erica. I still want you to do that as well. So, thank you.
All right, let's bring up nephew David. David's come on. It's hard to tell. It's really hard to believe how Eric and Uncle Doug became such good friends. Nothing. I'm David Spiske, Uncle Dinky's nephew. Uncle Doug was a force of nature in my life from the very beginning. He taught me some pretty special lessons. One of the lessons that he taught me was to be adventurous. Probably learned the same lesson from that. A good example, I grew up in Michigan, and as a young kid, I loved to ski. But we don't have a lot of mountains in the Midwest. And he knew that I wanted to come and ski in Tahoe, in California. And so he invited me out, and it was actually the first time that I met Jane as well. And I flew into LA. The three of us jumped in his old GMC Jimmy. I can remember it exactly the way it looked. It was one of those, cars that had driven for 200,000 miles and wasn't willing to give it up. And we got in and we headed north, and we spent some time in Mammoth, which was fantastic. And most folks would just sort of say, hey, let's go skiing, we'll stay in Mammoth for the week. But that is not the way Uncle Doug does it. He knew that I wanted to see the West Coast and ski it. And so we went from Mammoth, we drove up to June Mountain, skiing the mountain. And then we went to Kirkwood, and he said, David, you've got to see Lake Tahoe from the river because it's the best views. You've got to see the lake from the river. So we skied the heavy. And then he said, the Olympics were in Squaw Valley. We need to go to Squaw Valley. We need to see the Olympic flame. We need to Squaw Valley. And all along the way, every resort that we skied at, he bought me a hat. And I had a collection when I came home from the West Coast. 6 or 7 hats that were my prized possession for my high school years, and in my college years, I think people didn't recognize me if I wasn't wearing one of those hats from my West Coast trip. It was fantastic. Another lesson that he taught me was that youth does not need to be wasted on the young. It doesn't. He just kind of, he really kept on getting better, which I really appreciated about him. The thing that I remember most there is Sarah was in the story. The first time we met was, I think it was the first time we met up in at the college. I think we used to go to Michigan and spend a week or so on the beach. Had a good time, and I remember getting up early in the morning before anybody else in the group as well. Sarah and Uncle Doug were out on paddleboards on Lake Michigan, getting up early and all this home, and they were like 2 little kids. And we were at lunch. And Sarah, they need a picnic, and they're going to go and have a picnic together up in the sand dunes. And they were like 16-year-olds in love. It was absolutely fantastic. And as a single 57-year-old, it gives me something to aspire to as well. And then this last thing that I want to say is my uncle Doug gave me the gift of friendship. He became just my good friend. We did so many fun things together. And I am going to miss him immensely. But the things that he taught me, I am not going to forget, and I'm going to live them out. And one of them has been mentioned, or he said it, and he knew how to connect with people. He knew how to sit across the table from you and pay attention, be interested, and show you. It was just it was an amazing relationship to have. I know a lot of you out there. And I'm looking forward, by the way, I've had a good opportunity to talk to several of you already, and I want to meet more of things that I haven't met yet. So I'm looking forward to doing that the rest of the afternoon. Thank you. I'm going to bring up John now. Come on up. So I'm Mr. John Seascape in Chicago. David's younger brother. One of the tough things about getting older is that inevitably you start to lose your eye. Those who have had a profound presence and then bringing huge contributions to your growth throughout your life. My first such loss of this came a few years ago with the death of my mother, Susan Seascape. Including her home, there were reminders everywhere of all that she had done for me, brother, and my children. These reminders stirred a feeling in me of devastating loss, a feeling that those moments that she had created for us were now gone forever. Part of this occurred to me that my mother wasn't just creating moments for us. She was also teaching us how to create them for those that we loved. These moments were not lost. It was simply my time to carry that time. And I've been well trained. Since the passing of my dear Uncle Doug, those feelings of devastating loss have returned. And once again, the incredible silence is being soothed by the vivid memories of who he was in my life. And wasn't talking about who I want to be in the world. Uncle Doug was a curious man. And when presented with the opportunity to try something new, he was all in. The simplest example of this, or honest example that probably all of us in this room know, it's around food. Uncle Doug loved food. He was game for anything. And he wanted it in abundance. And he wanted you to try it too. First time I ever tried a kiwi was in the 1970s after he had discovered them here on the West Coast. He needed us to try this strange fuzzy fruit. So he sent a box of them to us in Michigan at Christmas time. And then we truly knew the nuances. Once during one of his visits to Chicago, he was driving around, he noticed an Afghan restaurant. And he wondered aloud, what Afghan food What is Afghan food? We declared that we needed to try Afghan food. And we did so that day. And my children, when there's a new food that appears risky, and they were squeamish about trying it, the prompt to get them over this is, what would Uncle Doug say? They would say, we've got to give it a try. If you don't like it, you don't have to finish it. But we need to try it. It was this gentle challenge to get you to try something new that may enrich your life. I think one of the greatest gifts to Uncle Doug was the frozen bulk packages of National Command chili dog sauce. This technological development in packaging and deep freezing allowed him to share one of his true loves with his people throughout the country. The Detroit Command chili dog. The man lived for them. And through the sharing of his cherished conies with his world, he also got to share another one of his charming, beloved traits. His unique style and technique in devouring food. One arm tightly wrapped around his plate, shin lowered, and the speed with which he could eat them was truly epic. It was this wonderful sort of vacuum style that humidity. He was uniquely his. And I love it. Uncle Doug was about so much more than food, though. It was really about broadening horizons. My dear cousin Erica was graduating from NYU. Uncle Doug invited me to be his +1 at the ceremony in Manhattan. And during the trip, Uncle Doug was insistent that we visit one of the city's great cultural institutions. This did not interest me, as I wanted to wander the neighborhoods. But he was adamant that we do something that enriched us, and he gave me two choices: either the Natural History Museum or the Met. And I begrudgingly chose the Met. And the result was a magical day that I would never forget. A day that has truly enriched my life ever since. The love of fine art was discovered during that visit. The love that I shared with my kids and my wife, the love that I rarely share with my guests in Chicago. A day with my uncle that I think about whenever we're visiting in our cuisine. Let me know, my uncle has been a guide in the art of the life well lived. I will carry him with me until my end. I will continue to remind my children of his generous spirit and his lessons on I'm joyfully taking on the experiences that the world has to offer. But most importantly, his lessons on being deliberate and intentional and creating special moments with those that you love. This magic in life with those that you love does not just happen by chance. You must take that time and move enthusiastically with it through that well-lived life. So I told my uncle Doug many times, he was a superstar in my life. And I was so incredibly lucky to have him. I love Uncle Doug. Safe travels, to be honest. Thank you. That was awesome. Now I would like to call up Doug's sister, Debbie. Debbie, are you?
Hey, everybody. As introduced, I am Debbie. I am Doug's favorite sister. Maybe his only sister, but nevertheless, his favorite. Can't really say anything more than what's already been said. He was an inspiration, getting us to try new things. When I was here, first visit, 14 years old, what an undertaking that he brought me out. And he introduced me to so many things, life lessons, right? He introduced me to dear friends of his, sorry, thank you. It took me on my first deep sea fishing experience, which at 14 years old, I didn't have that gene in my back. It's I'm not sure. But he still took me and introduced me to something new, some new adventure. I have to admit, though, I was not excited when the fellows running and the fish pit, because that interrupted my card game with the crew. So, but that's okay. It was still kind of a great experience. In fact, I had so much fun, I ended up extending my stay to another week. That was nice of him to tolerate. Second trip, I was 21 years old. He, again, speaking of the GMC Jimmy, he let my girlfriend and I take it out. I didn't know how to grab sticks, so she did it. And he just turned us loose and let us go experience things. It took us down to San Diego, and it was fabulous. And that was on the introduction system. And as David and John were saying too, and this is one of the life lessons. And I remember him saying the same thing, John, it's okay if you don't like something, because you have to try it first, give it a chance. And it's not only a lesson that he shared with me, but my friend Ruth that was on it. Same thing. It's good. It's okay. I guess again, the fact that he shared his friends with us openly and how important friends in family are to him. And that is something I still need to work on, because he did make everyone feel so important and cultivate relationships. Don't let them die. Keep in touch. And I have to work on it. But thank you, God, for so many things. Love you, and we're going to miss you.
Then I'm going to call up Doug's brother church. Are you ready? Those five?
I'm raising the microphone for you with your eye.
My name is Bruce Biscay. I am Doug's younger brother. I've known him since 1942. Doug was born in Ferndale, Michigan, which is sort of the west side of Detroit. And after living there in that house for a couple of years, they moved to Grosse Pointe, which is on the east side of Detroit. It's a community that has an excellent public schools. I think that's why my parents wanted me. I was going to live in that area. We had the opportunity to go to those suburban schools. And Elementary school was on 8 Mile, this is M&M's 8 Mile, way on the other side. And, our middle school was on 8 Mile also, and then Roseland High School was a distance away. And one day I was coming in the bus home from high school, and the bus was jammed, and people were standing in the bus. And it was in the winter, it was slippery out, and we were riding, and all of a sudden, this big lurch in the bus. And somebody ran us from behind us. We all ran to the back of the bus, looking out the window, and I said, "Hey, that's my brother there." He just ran down. And it was and, he had a trailer on his car, and he was pulling a friend's engine, and it was changing engines in a car. And the tailgates a little bit, and it was slippery, and he hit us. So, anyway, I'm just telling a couple of stories because Doug loved to tell stories. He was good at it, much better than I am, but I'll try to live up to his standards. And it was a day that Doug, as you know, loved fishing, and we have a cousin by the name of Bob Miller, and Doug and Bob used to fish together a lot. And they were out fishing one day in Lake St. Clair. They came back to the house, and my cousin was driving Doug, and they only caught one fish. And it was a small one, and neither one of them wanted to clean it, and nobody wanted to eat it. So my cousin took the fish and threw it out on the lawn in the car window. This is right at the house. And then cousin went inside the house because my stepmother, Velma, who was famous for making homemade pink puffs. So his hope was that he'd get it cleaned off, but I don't think he got anything. But while I was in the house, Doug quickly ran out, opened his hood, took the fish, laid it on the engine block, closed it for the hood, and tell a couple of days later, when Doug, he was in college, so he went to college at Wayne State University and did his pre-medical training there. He was living at our home. And I was still in high school at the time. And I had an old 51 Chevy convertible. And Doug came home late. He was working at one of the banks downtown Detroit and going to school downtown Detroit also. And he came home on Friday night, and we decided to go to the Dairy Queen. So we went each day. We were at the Dairy Queen, we were sitting in the car, and we kind of pulled up next to us. And it was full of four guys, rough-looking guys, one t-shirts that were rolled up at the car, and one had a lead pipe. He was banging on the side of his car, and they thought maybe they'd like to fight us, and I said, "Doug, I think maybe another day." And so we pulled out of there. We took off, and they took off after us. And we're driving down the boulevard, and now we're in Detroit. And these guys are right on their tail. And it's very interesting. I had a friend who was a shoplifter in high school, and I bought him a shot for his birthday. And the shot was in the back seat. So Doug jumps over the front passenger seat into the back seat. He's facing backwards. And I said, "Doug, if they get close enough, if they get too close, put it through the windshield." And we were driving, and they're driving really quite fast, and I'm going as fast as I could in this car. And I decided to make a U-turn at one of the gaps in the road. And these guys followed us, and I took it down the first gear. And figured out going that way, these guys were going around the corner, and they had a load in the car, and they blew it right apart. It sounded like a shot. And then I was in first gear, and I had a linkage problem, and you couldn't get it out of first gear yet. So fortunately, here we go, because I'm down in first gear, and I've got to stop, open the hood again. And so that's all true. Doug, after he finished his pre-medical in Detroit, he moved to Ann Arbor. I was in Ann Arbor at the time, so I was going to go to dental school, and I was in dental school, and he was in medical school. I got there first, and I was civil engineering. Anyway, Doug arrived, he got a house on North Fair, which is right by the campus. So really perfect location. It's an old farmhouse that's still there. I took a picture of it a couple of weeks ago, actually, when I was back in Ann Arbor. But he was on the third floor under a gable, and you could only stand up in the middle of his room. There were loads of cockroaches. He said it would keep on up at night because the transfer the click across the floor. But he could not lock his door because his room was an entrance to the fire escape through his window. So he could not lock the door. And I was there and I was visiting, and he was one pool in his room, and he had a tin can nailed on the end of it. What's this all about? I said, just going to show you. So he opens his window. It's got a tin can on the end of this nail on the end of the pole, with a notch in the metal. And he said, see up here, tree up there. So he pushed the stick out the window, and he got a pear in the cup, and then sort of triggered it a little bit, it started off, it extended it like a little notch on the cup. So, Doug went to medical school there. He actually worked at a sorority there, Phi Beta Sigma, and he served meals, and that's how he got his meals. So he had 3 meals a day at Phi Beta Sigma. After medical school, Doug entered the Army as a captain in the medical corps. He was stationed, his first station was Fort Hood in Killeen, Texas. And he was in 1st Armored Division, so that's tanks, tracked vehicles. And after 2 years, he was due to get out of the military, but he had 6 months before his residency started in California. So he didn't know what was going on at the time, and he wanted to see what was going on over there. So he volunteered to stay in an extra 6 months if they sent him to Vietnam, which they were more than happy to do. But he was stationed there again as a captain, in the medical corps, and he was put in a position out in a hill. This is in the DMZ, so he's in a really a rough area. And the only way in is by helicopter, and the U.S. military operated to the top of this hill, and all around was enemy territory. So the only way in, only way out was a helicopter. And they lived in bunkers, they lived sort of underground. But we used to send letters back and forth at that time through the old little cassette tapes that you could mail. So we didn't do letters, they were all audible. And I still have some, but I gave them to my son David. And it's amazing, these are just perfectly preserved today. And one of these is talking about what he's doing. So it's saying, well, we're sitting outside, it's a nice day, and they were playing Monopoly outside his bunker. And he said, this is not tape. And he started up to us, and he said, we could hear in the distance, you could hear water lines coming in. So we had a spider somewhere down below this encampment. And then behind a few miles, somebody was operating a mortar train. Once they keep on walking them in, so they changed the range on me. So they started walking these mortar routes in. We tape it was still here. And once they got the red line, and you walk them in, another 50 yards, 50 yards, 50 yards, and you could hear these get louder. And the tape, and then finally, he said we have to put the monopoly board to get inside because they're getting close. So anyway, after Doug finished his military career, he began his career in graduate school, graduate studies in California. And one of the things he was back visiting, so I'm from graduate mission, a small town of Shoreline. He was visiting, and he was taking a course to become a certified fly fishing instructor. The course was given at in Grand Rapids. You had to take the test to see if you passed it. So he was there for that, and we went out to dinner, and we were late, and we were doing things, and finally he was going back to his hotel, and so it was close to midnight, and he decided to need a little extra practice with test. So this makes it's a flag by him. Grand Rapids is the home of Gerald Ford, president. After he passed received the torch from Richard Nixon. And anyway, Gerald Ford's presidential library is right there above the bank of the Grand River. It's got a lot of fishing on Gerald Ford's front lawn. Just want to say Doug worked different hours. We had a orthodontic practice at Grand Haven, and Doug would call me at sort of all hours. And one of the things we got a real kick out of was he give me a call, and my receptionist would say, "Well, who's calling the police?" And they say, "This is I'd like to speak to Dr. Spiesky." And they said, "Who's calling, please?" And he said, "This is the real Dr. Spiesky." You're going to the right thing. Douglas was an excellent brother. We usually call and discuss politics and discuss the stock market and discuss the news and discuss the military, and he was my confidant. So anyway, and I want to give a shout out to my favorite sister, Debbie, who's a great woman to go. Thank you. For all of you are as well. Erica, I'd like to ask you to come up with grandkids. Are you insane?
My name's Sabrina. And we are the kids. And we have this favorite grandkids. My kids too, and are all sweet, so the kids. Starting off with the emotional part of my face, he was the best grandpa I could ever have. And if I could, I would want to hear his sushi story one last time. I loved him. So would you like to say anything before I start this stuff? Really smart. I'm going to go to some good memories that I have with him. I remember the funniest thing I'll probably say, but I am not good with limitations first. There's this place, somewhere in California, we went to. It's like right on the coast, somewhere. Yeah. And we get on this boat. I forgot why I remember this boat. We get on the boat, and we sit down. He's looking at the ocean, and then I turn behind me because my brother is sitting behind me with Doug. So look behind me. Sam is asleep, but Doug is holding him like this. I actually have a photo of them. They were like that for like the past hour. Another thing I remember on my birthday last year, because I knew his time was coming soon, I asked him to go to a sushi restaurant for my birthday. I asked him sushi to try. That's new to me. And he told me to try yellowtail. So, and it turns out that is my second favorite sushi. So, 100%. I've never eaten sushi ever. So, it's a nice story. Sushi. Okay. Thank you, Carol. Carol, I'm sorry if you have to have to look for anything that's just like, I don't know. Okay. Okay. Thank you guys for listening to my case.
Some cases of Americans as well. Let's start with America.
Lauren, thank you for being here. And I'm really happy to be able to hear everyone's story. I think one of the things I kind of realized through this process of, watching Dad become ill and just kind of it forces you to reflect on it. Also makes you realize the complexities of the people that you love. Like you only realize that you see one facet of their life, depending on your relationships. So through this process, I'm learning a lot about Dad that I didn't know before. So really profound stories. And I typically speak extemporaneously, but I'm really sure to forget something, so I apologize for reading, but that's how I need to get through this today. And, yes, so I'm so grateful to be here today and to hear so many wonderful stories about how my dad touched your lives. Some people don't know me. My relationship with my dad didn't follow traditional paths. I didn't meet him until I was 4 years old. And even then, our connection didn't truly begin. I reached out to him again in high school, hoping things would be different, but still, it wasn't the right time. It wasn't until I was 26 I tried one last time. And thankfully, the third time was the charm. That's when he finally welcomed me into his life. Getting to know him after so many years was not easy. I kept hearing so many stories from others about how incredibly generous he was, how much of himself, how much of his time he gave to people he cared about. Some people told me how he'd been like a father to him. And while I truly admire the depth of those relationships and the impact he had on so many lives, it was also hard to reconcile for me. As a daughter, it was painful to realize that the father figure so many people had cherished for so long had not been that person to me in the first stages of my life. I couldn't help but feel a deep sadness knowing that that kind of generosity hadn't extended my way for so many years of my life. What meant the most to me is that he eventually acknowledged in my existence and my place in his life. We couldn't change the past, but we could talk about it. And we did. And it wasn't always easy, but there was honesty. There was space for my grief and my grief. And also grief. And I believe that's where redemption lives. Not reminding what happened, but in choosing to face it, to name it, and to build something together. And I really encouraged to do that. He carried a lot of shame for the years he spent excluding me. And I know it took tremendous strength to admit that, not just to himself, but to the people he loved. And that alone meant more to me than I could say. He missed my high school and college graduations, but he was there when I earned my graduate degree. He missed many of my early milestones, but he was there for my wedding, and he walked me through the aisle when I had long believed I had to look cool. Over time, He even built a strong, loving relationship with my children, his grandchildren, and that meant the world to me. And toward the end of our time together, he made sure I knew something I belonged to. He was proud of me. Proud of the person I become, proud of the mother I become, and those words will carry me forever. So today, sorry. So today, I'm mourning the loss of my dad, but I'm also mourning the version of a relationship that we didn't get to have. The years we lost and the years lost. But still, I'm so deeply grateful for the 19 years that we did have. And they were always easy, and they were always good with ours. And we built something bigger than truth, forgiveness, and love. And I'm thinking that's the always. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. There's something about Jenny. Oh, your name is Jenny.
So I'm the first daughter. We have Noah. I wasn't a time period, so when I'm 72, so some of the things that go up. You see some pictures. So the memory is how nice, right? And we met on Hermosa Beach, here, in the afternoon. And really great skin if you don't already see that already. And the first time in a while. And so here's this man battling with this gigantic hair and beard, and looking at him up in the sky. He's battling, it's kind of like Jesus. Just another hair. And that's been our relationship. And remember him hugging me because he's so much taller. So Dan exposed me to a lot of things I didn't want to. I've heard the voice tonight. For today, museums, she's been a big museums, historical campus, side of the road, right there. He spent more time than I did. He went to me to, we saw Cats twice. The opera, the Miserables, the Woods. These were opportunities for me to go. I enjoyed it. Sushi, of course. It was the coolest middle school ever because I had sushi before anybody. Any adults really. Probably two, something like that. And nice memories of that. Looking forward to don't know what that is. It's kind of like a big stone and you were next. And so you asked me and he let me draw his back. So he comes back and I'm like, this is like fine. You know, so really it was a nice movie. So kind of piggybacking on David's skiing story, it was a lot of skiing and it was fun. Except that a training class. So I don't know if you're familiar with cryonics effect stuff, but it was a little smelly in the middle. Like, oh God, stop it. So he was part of this being area. So he didn't stop reading it. It was and stuff. So so there's that.
So one of the things he expected that's supposed to was meeting Michigan and friends. So many people, so different than how I grew up. Different part of the world. One thing I'm really grateful for is everybody is so kind. Because it didn't have to be just some kid that my dad had. And so to feel appreciated, it was scary. Traveling along with him, meeting new people, I didn't know. So I really appreciated the love and the care that people showed me. And I still do. I think the next thing he gave me was a sister. I don't always wanted a sister. You know, because of the what I was all. You know, I like to play parties. It's kind of like, you know, because identity that I was the only child until the rest of the morning. And the week that I found out that my sister was the week that my uncle died. That was really weird. So I really appreciate her. So I can't see. So my other really big appreciation and surprising, I wasn't sure how it would go. It's different. You know, I spent a lot of time coming down here to people take care of Sarah, see my dad, and then I was some three that to see and it was really nice to have that because I've never had that with anybody. With my sister, who's not a traditional sister, and the stepmom who non-traditional stepmom, and it was really healing, but for all of us. And I was like, is she ever going to call me again after Dad's gone? I really felt like I forged something special. So I really appreciate that Dad for that. So that's really important. I really appreciated Ronnie. Ronnie is not really talk to you, but I think about you a lot. You're his best friend. And one of the most important people in his life. And things about him through you that I had no idea about, which is really touching for me. For you in his life. You make him a better person. Daryl was supposed to be here, and one of the reasons I was thinking about when folks were dating, and it was online dating, and that's kind of sketchy. And when he came in, he had one that has fishing shirts on. So I really be totally okay. Yeah, and we're getting engaged, or we're engaged, and we're getting married in July. Maybe
General Sarah, I'd like to ask you about the
Where it all crazy. Does anybody need an explanation? Well, I did have to write some stuff down just so I don't forget anything, just so everybody
One of the things I wanted to say first off is Doug was born in the Midland State. And he was announced the mission's Midland State. This is called the Midland Building, and I thought it was appropriate to building. So my dear, very eccentric husband, Doug, he just, what he said was, well, at least I'm a lovable eccentric, not a despicable eccentric. I said, that's correct. And we also recognize our dear friend Ronnie. We and Doug worked together at Riverside Community and ER. And years after they worked together, was working with Ronnie at USC. And one day she said, "Want to meet somebody?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" So Doug drove in from Redlands to LA where I live, and we had basically a blind date. And he arrived, and the first thing I saw was this white hair coming up the steps to my apartment. I could just see this thing bouncing up the stairs. Then we had to walk to a local restaurant. And because I live in Westwood and parking is impossible. So it makes sense to walk. Well, one day. What's wrong? And he had a sort of food, but he said, "No, I'm fine, we can do it." So we went. But I noticed first off, was not telling me it was anybody. And it didn't matter who it was. You know, it could have been the homeless guy we were passing on the street. It was, when we went into the restaurant, he would greet the servers of the restaurant. But then he would ask them advice, what do you recommend? What's your favorite thing on the menu? And he was always very appreciative of that. And it was just kind of refreshing to see. It was just, this was a man who was coming to other human beings, which I really liked. It was kind of a slow start to our relationship because Doug was so busy going on his hunting trips, his fishing trips, his trips to see family and holidays, whatever it was. He was so busy, he didn't have time for me. And I remember one time he had the fly fishing club, he had the trout in the classroom, he had all these activities he was involved in. So I was just like chopped liver. And accused him once of having a drive-by date. When he just come into town, we'd have lunch and go back to go off on one of his trips. So his favorite places was the Upper Peninsula, and it was with Chris and Janice in Cedarville, but it was also the hunting and fishing and the Simi Bunch. And one day he came over to see me from Redlands, and he immediately got on the phone with me, and they were planning a trip. And he said, talking and talking and talking. And then I went to Doug and I said, "Go home. What are you doing here? Go home and talk to your bromance." And I was just curious with him. So why did you drive from Redlands so you could get on the phone and talk to Eric? And it was just like, oh my God, that's crazy. And he was totally going. I said, you didn't even know. Because I said, there's no reason for you to be here. So I think we learned that maybe when we played the thing with play more country. And one of the things that I learned early on with Doug was that he was very easily distracted. I don't know if anybody else was experienced that here in the restaurant. But one day he came over, I think we were watching the Academy Awards or something. And he sat down, the TV was on. And I was talking to him, I said, would you like a drink? And the next thing I had to walk up. And I would say, "Oh, can I get you something?" Because he would get mesmerized by screens. Televisions. He just could not look at a TV screen. He really had some serious attention deficit issues. And I'm sure that everybody in this room has experienced at least one of those episodes of attention deficit. And as our relationship grew slowly, one of the things that we did was we shared each other's family and friends. And it just felt like we were expanding the spring of community. Can you put it back there? We have how many doctors in the house? And how many nurses in the house? And we have EMT, paramedic, as well. I met his family and his friends, and he met my family and my friends. We just expanded this circle of love. And I feel a tremendous amount of love from all of the family and all of the friends. There's so much support and care and love, and I'm just so grateful for that. He embraced my daughter, Irene, and my grandkids to like cash, and my whole family. And you heard what my brother Tom had to say, and how my family felt. And I remember in Michigan going to pick the blueberries and making blueberry pies and board games. And John took us over in a canoe. He loved to pick people over and have us land in the water. He had no respect for old age at all. He was just on a mission to the center. When we went to Michigan, and then this was the first time I met the family, and David mentioned the paddleboard. I kept saying, I'm going to teach you how to paddleboard. I'm going to teach you how to paddleboard. Instead of the paddleboard. And so I said, okay, Mary, let's go. And he got distracted. And he started a conversation with somebody. So I'm reading, and I just decided, I'm going down to the beach. I'm just going to try it out. And by the time he realized that I wasn't waiting for him anymore, I'm on the lake, and I figured out how to stand up, and I'm out paddleboarding. And he's like, wait, I have to teach you. And he gets out on the paddleboard, and we're paddling around, he's in the water, having to climb back up on the paddleboard, and I'm going, and you're confidently paddling along. So, I managed to do the standard paddleboard myself. Another thing that nobody has mentioned, and I'm shocked that nobody has mentioned this, Doug was famous for leaving his fly down. I was told that the staff at Redlands Community had somebody assigned the job of watching the fly and reminding him to zip his fly. Because that was something new. And when I said to him, what is it? Zipping up your fly and you just can't do it. And he goes, who cares? That was his attitude about it. He cared less. His mind, to whatever the next activity was, and zipping on a fly was just not something important. Did you see this fly down, Annie? And actually, somebody wrote a note. I put together a book for Doug's 80th birthday, and people submitted notes because it was COVID time. And so one guy said, one thing I can think of about Doug is fly. He had fly to the places he wanted to go. He also used flies to go fishing, and he always left his fly there. So, There's one more story I'm gonna tell, and then we'll finish off, because today is about celebrating Doug. It's about partying, it's about having fun, because Doug gives fun more than anything, and interacting with people was the most fun he ever had. Anytime we have any kind of experience with meeting new people or with just being with people we know, it was fun in his words. One day we went down to visit, and it was Thanksgiving time, and we went down to Carlsbad and San Marcos, where most of my family is. And we spent the night at my daughter's house. And the next thing we were gonna go do a little shopping down in Carlsbad. And so we took off to go do the shopping in Carlsbad. And we got somewhere where we wanted to purchase something. It was nice. And we went through his pockets. I was looking, did you put it in your back pocket? Maybe you put it in your front pocket. Where is it? And I called my daughter and I said, can you look in the desk room? I can't find his checkbook. Is it maybe he left it there. And she called me back. She said, I looked all over. I can't find his checkbook anywhere. And she said, you remember where we last saw? I asked him, I said, where did you see it last? He goes, well, that's the number of bed. I was in my shoe to Kansas. You could say. He said, you look at the shoe. You took off his shoe, his checkbook. All day long, he had been complaining. I was footing. So after that, you could get it about when you look in your shoes or that. Anytime he was missing something, my family would say, well, did you check his shoe? I'm grateful for the 15 years that we had together. 6 of them were married. His eccentricities were at times, but also very endearing to me. He really loved family. He loved friends. He loved food and fun. And I might have to put it in a different order because I think maybe he loved food better than anything else. And when he's still thinking of things were going downhill. And one of the things that I'm really grateful for is as he was nearing the end of his life, and Jenny and Tom and Debbie, John and David and Kurt, and we came to see and my family members. And it was and my dear friend Ronnie was at his side as he died. Ronnie was right there. We didn't have to make some arrangements, and when we came back, after we were leaving the funeral home, making some arrangements, I called Ronnie and said, we're on our way home. And she said, well, why don't you go out to lunch? And I said, no, we'll come home. And within the block of the house, she called me, she said, it's time. And we went in the front door and he had just died. And so the bonding experience that I had with this family and the sharing of the care, and I'm so grateful. And I'm just so thankful that I have to expand this love and the sense of offense, really. And that's what it's all about. And that's what people want. I want everybody to dance, I want you to party, I want you to have fun, and celebrate that. And I'm grateful to the Redlands Community Hospital Hospice that was so and 11 days later, he died. So what I would encourage you all to do in this room is share your stories with each other, expand that circle of love and friendship. And just meet new people and share the open and expand your circle. I think we're ready for lunch, right?
See if I got the message here. Okay. This ends the streaming, so for the streaming guests, this ends the event for you guys. Doug's Memorial slideshow is now available for viewing. Doug's Memorial YouTube channel under videos. And then, let's see. Live stream service is recorded and is also available to be viewed anytime on that channel as well. For everybody here that is present, we're going to start the Memorial slideshow. And you're welcome to visit the buffets. And again, the buffet is here, and there's also a buffet upstairs if you want to go upstairs. Slides from the celebration of live recording are available to watch anytime on Doug's Memorial YouTube channel. And then we will come together for a toast. It says at 1:45, but it's going to be a little bit later. So everyone, go get something to eat, enjoy, and then we'll. So everybody go at one point. Hold on one second. Okay, we're going to dismiss table each time, so and then you will.
I'm something back.